Hello friends, this is Akulmach live and I'm Chandrakant. Today we will be discussing about very important subject, especially relevant for business, which is building trust. And as you know friends, building trust is a long drawn process and it has been made difficult because of the restrictions that we have now. We have to rely on the digital platform and building trust is becoming such an important and critical aspect. People with lot of big network will have to find new type of clients which are available on the digital platform, and they have to build the trust all over again. So it is becoming very difficult subject, and also it's a new arena. Digital space is a new arena, and to discuss this matter we have a very distinguished personality joining us from UK to enlighten us and tell us what we can do, what are the tricks of the trade, and this is going to be very useful discussion. So stick around friends for this outstanding show. Welcome back friends, and today's guest is Mr. Mike Bradley. He joins us from UK. He is the group CSO of RHF and Scale Up Arena, and topic of our discussion is how do we build trust, especially in post-COVID era. So Mike, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon to you, Chandra. Good to speak to you. Good to see you as always.
Mike,
I'm not on a boat, by the way, just in case you wonder if I'm actually on the boat at the moment.
Well, Mike, I can imagine that because yachting is very difficult and you can't be sitting so quietly.
Exactly.
But it's a very nice background, Mike.
It is. It's called the Needles. You can see them in the distance there with the lighthouse. It's on the Isle of Wight. It's one of the main points on the Round the Island race, which is a 150-year-old sailing race that goes on once every year. Didn't happen last year because of COVID, but it's happening this coming Saturday as it happens. And I shall be observing it from a rib, which would be quite fun.
Wow, so amazing. I mean, you can see it without going to your drawing room, I think.
Yes, well, I did actually do the race once. I was on a boat in 2008. I was, one of the obedient crew, like pull this rope now. So I would pull the rope and wind this, wind that, unwind that. It was all good fun. But this time I'll be on a rib, which is also quite fun because you speed across the water, get to that particular point there, and then it starts with a trickle of boats coming through, and then all of a sudden there's an absolute horde of them. Because there's actually, the year I took part, there was 1,800 boats. And this, on that norm, I think the year before last, it was 1,500 boats. So it's a massive race.
So talking about being a good crew, you mentioned, I think today's subject is also very apt for taking this forward. And the subject is how do we build trust? Because for any businessman, trust is the most important thing, and especially now because of the lockdown and quarantine, and you can't meet the people, etc. And other situations, business has moved digital, and building a trust on the digital platform is a totally different ball game. So we would like to understand first what is the importance of trust and how do we build it in today's context.
Exactly. Yes, I think it's an interesting thing because of course, as you rightly say, trust is key in every situation, whether it be a personal or a business situation. And how do we actually build that trust, not just in a personal basis, but I think also that the same trust has to be projected, whether it be a company, whether it be a service, whether it be a product, or whether it be a brand, because it's all based on how, and it's a lot of it is based on perception. So how do you ensure that people get the right perception of you and your business and your company and your product. I was reading about a trust equation called Charles Green's trust equation, which is very interesting. And they've got a little formula which looks at credibility and reliability and intimacy. Those things added together, marks out of 10, divided by the level of, shall we say, self-interest. So in other words, the more self-interested you are, the less able to gain trust you are, which I think is very, very interesting. So that sort of got me thinking, well, on a personal level, how do these things look? Also on a person-to-person level, if you're selling to a founder or a CEO, obviously you've got to convince them. But also it becomes slightly more complicated, I think, if you're looking at a team and you're trying to sell to a whole board or to a whole group, because you actually need to ensure you've built this trust with at least the majority of those people. And that can sometimes be very tricky, I believe, within a business environment, whether it be online or offline. We've all, I think the days of the super slick salesperson turning up with their polished suit and tie and fast talking and, trying to close you off, a bit like the timeshare salesperson. I think those days are over for the majority of people. And also, as we know, building online rapport globally is a big part of what we do these days. Now, I've been involved with online selling and promoting and working, partnering for 15 years. So to some extent, for me, that's been something I've sort of become part of my DNA, hopefully. But, as with ourselves, we've never met personally, but I think we're starting to get to know each other to the point where we understand what makes the other person tick, and I'm sure that when we meet, eventually, it will be, I know this person pretty well, and therefore we've built that trustworthiness between us. There's a credibility, there's a reliability, there's a degree of in trust between us, in trusting and intimacy about what we share, some elements. And also, I think we're both aware of the balance between, and there's a balance to be struck between self-interest and also the interest in somebody else. I think within a personal situation, the self-interest should be less, within a business situation, I think it needs to be balanced, frankly, because otherwise it's not true, it's not credible, because you've got your commercial objectives, I've got my commercial objectives. We have to recognize that. And I think the relationship bases itself on the fact that we both need to win. It's got to be a win-win situation, the classic partnering scenario. So that's sort of my starter for 10.
Very interesting, Mike. In fact, you rightly said that without trust, it will be very difficult to set up any transaction between businesses. And there is no shortcut, because if you don't know the person, you don't know the person. I mean, there is no choice. You have to know the person first, and that is why the trust is built. But I think now, in the current context, especially from 2019 onwards, when people are not able to travel, catch a flight and go all the way to UK and meet, or vice versa, the only method we have to build trust is this 2D screen. And I think that requires a totally different skill. And another thing that has happened is people with a lot of experience who have built a lot of big network, they are losing it now, because I think they have to build a new type of trust with new set of people all over again. I think this is a restarting. It's a reset button that the nature has pressed, and you have to start building your network again. So what are the key ingredients of building a trust in an online arena?
Well, there's an interesting question. Again, I think it's two-dimensional. There's two different types. There is the online trust in a person-to-person environment, so like between you and I, and then there's the online trust for an e-commerce platform, shall we say. So a business that's selling its product purely online still has to actually get to the trust point, otherwise people won't commercially buy it. So again, it's about ensuring that in the other person's eyes, the correct perception is being taken. So, and again, I think in the online world, in an e-commerce environment, which is where a lot of trade is now going, as we know, with SaaS products, etc., the credibility is by endorsement. So maybe that is a case study, maybe it's recommendations, maybe it's a contact, or reviews online. Hopefully they're trustworthy, so I think that is a key part of an online e-commerce experience. Reliability is vital because, of course, that will affect your reviews. It's the if you say you're going to deliver it by tomorrow, deliver it. And if it's going to be late, which does happen occasionally, at least have the courtesy to communicate with people and say, there's been a delay, it's going to be tomorrow, blah, 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 which is, I suppose the classic example that we know about is Amazon. Amazon, I think, has got this pretty good by and large. And that's why they're doing such a sterling job of selling stuff to people globally, because I think they understand the online trust model. Then there's the intimacy element. How do you do that within an e-commerce environment? Well, again, I think Amazon, it's a moving ship. So see with the picture in the background, but basically, it's understanding the behavior of the buyer so that you can tailor things in a way that is of interest to them. So rather than blasting the world saying, here's a product, what you're doing is you're tailoring the audience and saying, because you bought this product, we think you'll be interested in this one. So I think that's an area where you can tweak the experience to make it more personal, to show that you actually paid some attention to what is really of interest to the client. And then, of course, it's about, the self-interest element. There'd be, we'd be very foolish to think that there's a personal element in Amazon. What they're actually trying to do is ensure your trust ongoing so you come back and buy something else. It is a commercial play. Yeah. There wouldn't be, a time for Amazon to come along and say, oh, thank you, Mike, you bought this product, blah, 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 blah. That's not credible. It's not true. So, you can dismiss it. But I think also that's the e-commerce side. On the traditional networking piece, I think this is where the dynamic becomes much more interesting. So you've got to build rapport, let's say with a board. You have to build that up online like we do here. So we build that up over time, but I think we do it by being open and honest with each other. And also being yourself. What we're not doing here in this context even is it's not like we're on television. We're not here as a newscaster just giving updates. What we're doing is we're trying to establish and build bridges. So, people need to see there's a vulnerability in the human side, and we're not just robots. I think otherwise, we'll all be replaced one day by an automaton saying, "Well, hello, how are you today, Chandra?" Blah blah blah. It's not going to get like that, and that's the difference between us and robots. Is there isn't an emotional component that we're trying to build. There's not an emotional quotient. So I think that's where the differentiator is, and that's how you build it online. Is we open up about our circumstances, our challenges with COVID maybe, or challenges with our business, and we share together and create, and we try and help each other with the challenges we face, and even better, try and help each other with the deals that we want to get, so that we all live and eat and put food on the table, roofs on our head, over our head even.
Well, I think you mentioned two very important points. One was Amazon, and when I think of Amazon, one or two things flashes my mind. One is that Amazon is such a strong, trustworthy brand that multiple layers of people are working without even thinking about it. For example, sellers are selling, buyers are buying. Then there is a whole delivery mechanism which are actually distributing to unknown people. Then this last mile delivery, that person is totally not emotional about actually delivering, like a postman. Postman used to be very emotional person. That person will go door to door, but these guys are not emotional. They will just deliver, follow a protocol and do it. And in case you want to return your merchandise, whatever you purchased, there'll be a return process. So because of one brand which has built a trust, so many different types of activities going on without even thinking, because they totally trust the brand. But I think you also mentioned very, very important critical subject about self-interest. And when we talk about self-interest, the key issue that comes to everyone's mind, mine, yours, or everyone in the world, even animals, is to do self-preservation. So if that is the underlying thought of self-preservation, how we can ignore self-interest when we are actually building a trust? Is there a mechanism which we can use to build a trust and ignore self-interest?
I think that comes down to being true and open, and also recognizing right from the start that everybody has to have some degree of self-interest. And those people who say that they're not interested in doing things themselves, I don't believe them. So again, trustworthiness depreciates if you say, I'm not really interested in what's in it for me. Of course they are. And if they're genuinely not interested in what's in it for them, well, is that true? And that credibility, again, the trust goes out the window. For me, that's like, yeah, right, sure. I'm not sure I agree with that. But I think what's important is that the whole equation around this builds confidence in each other. It's all about credibility and competence, and alongside that, competency. So if you say that you can do something, prove that you can do it. If you don't prove your competency, that affects the confidence level. That also affects the credibility of your argument or your product or your pitch, because it's fair to say with a new business, this is a new business, we've got this new product, and ideally, as part of that new business, you will be identifying some beta test clients who will work with you to actually refine your solution so that it's credible to others. I think one of the biggest challenges for a startup is they don't necessarily have clients. And I think we discussed this before, actually, where part of the key to ensuring you've got a good startup proposition is build it in conjunction with the market and the customer, because otherwise you're not going to address that competency, credibility, and confidence factor, which give trust in your product and your business. And I think when you get to like the scale ups that we deal with in Scale Up Arena, what we're doing there is we're saying, well, actually, you've already, to some extent, you've demonstrated your reliability and credibility. What you've now got to do is demonstrate your level of interest in the client by showing them that you supply what is important to them, because ultimately that's what they're going to want. They're going to want a solution to deliver for them. So I think in the growth company environment, credibility should be a given, and there will be endorsements, there'll be clients, etc. Reliability, well, you wouldn't have got to become a scale-up or a growth company without being able to deliver to clients in a consistent way. And so therefore it's building that intimacy and giving credibility to the self-interest, such as, we take your money and then we run, is not a way to build a good long-term trust within any environment. So be there, be part of the customer. And this is one of the challenges, I think, when you get from the early majority phase of the product life cycle into the late majority phase, where it becomes like a multinational product. And when it becomes a multinational product, customer service goes out the window, because actually all they're interested in, how many orders have we got today, what margin have we made today, and so the service level is just doesn't really matter, because they've got so many customers. We're too big to fail. Back to our corporate AAA syndrome we discussed in the past. The arrogance that sets in, the forgetting the customer, the amnesia piece, and the fact that we're so high in the clouds that we don't breathe fresh air with our customers and our staff. So, I think this sort of model, this trustworthiness model, applies across all organizations, all products, all services. What are you doing to improve those elements? And many, I think, of the multinationals would do well to delegate this evaluation of the trust model to their divisions, to their customers, to their functions, to ensure that these elements are all in balance and going in the right direction.
Well, I think, in my opinion, the trust building over digital platform has become the center stage of any business development activity, whether you are a large corporation or a SME or a startup. So that requires a totally different kind of patience levels. And I think you mentioned so many different, very, very powerful points today with regard to actually building the trust. However, I think the last question I have is, what are the key attributes of building the trust using a digital platform? Because here you don't have ability to measure what the other guy is thinking on the other side of the screen. At the same time, you don't see the body language, because that is also one of the important aspect of communication. So we have to rely on just the spoken words to build a relationship in this case. Do you have any opinion on this?
Yeah, well, I think this is where having an open and true discussion, and I in most cases, I think it's, again, there's a difference between building rapport between people in a network and building rapport as, say, an Amazon customer site. But it all, again, comes down to, the environment of people that are around that. So I think, again, it comes down to reviewing. It comes down to, which other contacts do you know? You've been involved with an online discussion, maybe with other people. Are those sort of people also trustworthy, or are they the traditional used car salesman, timeshare salesman? I think the people that you see around the people on the other end tell you about the sort of person that you're dealing with. So I think you can look for signals, you can look for references, you can look at LinkedIn profiles. What sort of things are people saying? Are they people interested, or are they actually self-interested? are they out for me, or are they actually out to try and build value and support in our world? And that, I don't know, maybe I'm a bit naive. I like to think that 80% of people actually want the best for others. And so if you go into trading relationships, personal relationships, with the view that actually this person is probably one of the 80%, you're probably more likely to build up that credibility, reliability, intimacy, and the right balance of self-interest, so that there is credibility, competence, and competency expressed, rather than being in a situation where you're not, going in and thinking immediately, well, most of the people in the world are not trustworthy. If you go into it that way, I think you might just as well, go and sell flowers in the local shop, because you're not going to build online relationships. You're not going to even probably build strategic partner relationships, because there's got to be a degree of trust. We're all familiar with non-disclosure agreements. I always think that the day you have to bring the non-disclosure agreement out is the day that the relationship's already over, because that trust is no longer there.
Yes, Mike, I think we had a very interesting discussion. There are a lot of learnings from this discussion. I think everybody needs to build trust, and people who are experienced also with 20-30 years of experience, they still need to build trust now in the new world, which is the digital world of Industry 4.0. So thank you so much, Mike, for finding time and discussing this very critical, emotional subject, but very, very important.
Thank you, Chandra. It's been a pleasure as always, and have a good afternoon and evening.
Thank you so much, Mike, and we will catch up in the next show. Until such time, I'd like to say goodbye.
Look forward to it.